Good morning. It is Monday, March 23rd at 6 a.m. in the morning here on the Pacific Northwest, or here in the Pacific Northwest. Yeah, today I'm talking about Flow Chasers Monday. We talk about it every Monday here on this channel. And I'm presenting a theory of accessing the flow state for a group that I really care about, which is small business owners. So let's dive in. I do have a plan. I'm going to talk about what this whole 30-minute thing is all about, who I am, a little bit about burnout, because it really informs the discussion that we're going to have that's going to energize us and start the week on the right foot, chasing flow. I love this topic so much. So, what is Flow Chasers Monday? There's no selling, I have nothing to sell you. This is really a practice for me of showing up consistently at a time where I feel the most on, which is early in the morning. And I love Mondays because there's a lot of excitement about what is the structure and the plan for the week, what you can get done, what your team can get done. And this is such a perfect time to talk about chasing flow. As I said, it's about a 30-minute lecture, and then notes and links are on my website, highlyanticipated.net/Mondays. My watch is bothering me, so I'm going to take it off here. A little bit about who I am, not too much. And this is definitely not your typical get to know the presenter. I'm a web designer, I'm a graphic designer, I'm a mom of two. I think that 6 a.m. on a Monday mornings is a great time to do a consistency challenge. I'm really somebody who likes to investigate and try my own thing. Challenges that don't have a perfect answer is where I really have an expertise in, because when you don't need a perfect answer, a really good answer will be in the standby. And as a graphic designer and somebody who helps with business and marketings, there might be one plan that worked perfectly a few months ago or a few years ago, but it's not working now. And so people like me are, I feel like a really important part of this workspace, because we're good when we don't know what is exactly right. And I say a lot of like outdated, cringy stuff. It's all about like shooting your shot. Sometimes the shots don't land, right? I'm also a really great cable knitter, and I've been running this whole operation for Highly Anticipated for the last 10 years. So when I talk about like chasing flow and setting goals, I want you to understand that I'm not somebody who's just sitting on the sidelines thinking about getting into something or starting a project. I am somebody who like actively goes after like a lot in my life. Maybe you are too. I'm also somebody who's highly sensitive. I have a lot of inconsistent energy patterns, a lot of inconsistent mood patterns. And I'm also somebody who likes to deep dive. This idea of interdisciplinary learning mesmerizes me. So, like, the more things you can bring into a topic and see it from new perspectives, it just has my brain lighting up in a new and fun way. And now we get into this lecture because that's a little bit who I am, what I care about. And now I want to talk about like who I know. And I know this sounds like awful, but as somebody who's also been through burnout, burnout happens to really smart people. And I've noticed this pattern. So start with me. Burnout really only happens when you have a high capacity. So people who like I say the people that you ask to bring napkins to the cookout, like those are not the people that are probably going to get burnout. It's the person who's like running the whole cookout that is likely to get burnout. It is the capacity person. And I'm not saying that maybe like you have to be a high capacity person, because you might not be feeling very high capacity in stages of burnout. But to be recognized as high capacity, you have to be valuable and you have to know how to do something or to have an effect on something. And that gets noticed by people and they praise you and they provide you resources. And your whole brain thinks that I need to do this thing to get the things that I need. And that's where burnout starts to come in play. If the things that you think that you have to do to get the things that you need aren't energizing and lighting you up and really like goal driven, mission driven for your soul, like in alignment, they tend to have a lot of burnout potential. And it's also probably something that worth noting. If you are really good at it and you get a lot of praise for it, or you get a lot of compensation for it, it's really hard to put that thing down, because that is your idea of like how you get more, is to basically just ring the bell of what you've been doing forever. And that is really what leads to burnout. And when you're in burnout, that pain is so much that you grab these unconscious behaviors, because if you were really conscious and aware of how bad this whole pattern of burnout feels and how not in alignment you are, you go conscious, you do your numbing behavior, you scroll on Instagram and watch way too many videos. Ask me how I know. But we go unconscious because we need to numb. It's painful to not be in that alignment. And I say all this because if we want to talk about chasing flow as opposed to chasing goals, when we talk about goals, we don't have to consider burnout. We don't have to talk alignment. We just have to talk about, I want this and I'm going for this. That's all we have to talk about. But when we talk about flow, we really need to engage the unique part of us, of you, of me, that participates in a situation, in the magic of the transformation that's happening when we chase a goal. So, what is flow? It's a really popular term. I'm sure anybody watching this has an idea of what flow is. It was widely popularized by um, a lot of corporate training, because they realized that an employee who shows up in flow one day was just as effective as an employee that showed up for 5 days and went to the water cooler and did it. So this idea of flow became really popularized because employers wanted to know how to get the most productivity and the most like genius from its employees. So we have a lot of research as to what is flow, what are some flow triggers, both for individual work, for group work, for when we go and see a performance or a sports event or something of that nature. We are absorbing flow. The whole idea about the economy of flow, like how much of our economy is of people driven in flow and people just being mesmerized by that. It is a type of entertainment for sure. And I'd love to see some numbers about the economy and tracking that. I'm going to talk about your brain on flow. It's my favorite slide because I get to talk about drugs, not like street drugs, but like drugs that happen in your brain naturally when you're in flow. Talk about a little bit about how to chase flow, creativity, and adaptability, and where I really feel like these last two slides differentiate goals from flow. And this is my whole proposal, and what really gives you the opportunity to find out what is radical self-acceptance and alignment for you, because alignment is a flow trigger. I'm going to say that again. Alignment is a flow trigger. And I'll get into what that might mean. It's hard to necessarily say like this is exactly the flow trigger that's going to work for you, because we're all different. I need to say that before we jump in. I conceptualize flow in this way, and it is not from some book that I read, although I've read a lot of books and listened to a lot of podcasts on flow. This is how I perceptualize it. We all have this like comfort zone, and the size of our comfort zone has a lot to do with what's going on in our lives right now. How hydrated are we? How much sleep did we get? How are we feeling? Is there a lot of changes going on? Are we just adapting so readily that maybe our comfort zone is kind of shrinking to adapt and to adjust to the new environment? But the idea is that we have this comfort zone. And what's really fascinating is what happens just at the edge of our comfort zone. And that's where a lot of my work is with people. Now, Outside of your comfort zone, I'm going to kind of give you the energetic equivalent of like the questions that you would be asking to identify that you are towards the outside of your comfort zone. Now, if it was in the center nucleus of your comfort zone, you would know exactly what was going to happen. You'd be able to predict the outcome. It probably is something that you've done many, many times before. You can go absolutely unconscious. It's like driving from here to work or another path that you go very, very frequently. That's like the inside of the comfort zone. The outside of the comfort zone, that is where we ask questions of, I don't know what's going to happen, but you don't feel threatened by like all of those possibilities. And so the edge of our comfort zone is curiosity and questioning. I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm really interested and engaged, and I think I can find it out. And that is like going towards the edge of our comfort zone, right? And I believe that that is out of the edge of our comfort zone into this liminal space that is the playground for flow. Because when we are, it takes going outside of your comfort zone to get that complete focus and absorption. Our brains need to signal and send the neurotransmitter surge that, like, hey, this is important to me. I need to focus. Maybe it's a little dangerous, like rock climbing and stuff. If you listen to Stephen Kotner's work in particular on flow, he followed around a lot of the extreme athletes in the 90s, like the Shaun Whites doing like these crazy personal development moves. He writes this, I don't know if he writes, he does this lecture called Mapping Cloud Nine. It's on like some kind of audio thing. I get it from Libby. It's my favorite listen. But he talks about this flow that happens when this group was doing all of these extreme sport new records, like world records. He talks about Johnny Way, doing the skateboard over the Great Wall of China or something like that. Just absolutely crazy and dangerous things. Like Johnny Way definitely did not know that he was going to live. That was definitely on the outside of his comfort zone. Cheese. And he still did it, right? And then he broke a whole bunch of bones and still did it. So there's this element of like kind of danger. I don't know what's going to happen. And then we hit our dysregulation zone. Dysregulation zone is where the party stops. All the energy goes into calming down, getting rid of the danger, or expelling like the physical discomfort. So dysregulation stops flow. And that is an important piece to realize because for whatever reasons that you become dysregulated, those become the potential for staying in flow and creating in flow is kind of like knowing your when you're bowling, it's like knowing where the rails are, right? There's the edge of my comfort zone where the potentiality for flow starts, and then there's the dysregulation zone, and everything in between is this liminal space filled with potential for complete focus and absorption. That's what I want to say. Favorite slide? Free drugs. This neurotransmitter that happens in response to the events and the things that you put yourself in is creating this neurotransmitter surge. And the street equivalent of these drugs would kill a person. And your brain is producing these naturally when you're in flow because it's a response. It's a evolutionary response to your environment. So you're getting dopamine, you're getting norepinephrine, you're getting endorphins, you're getting anandamines, and the result is almost this different brain structure where different parts of your brains are lighting up and signaling down, and it is juicy and it is so fun. And one of my favorite parts of like a good flow session is that the creative critic, that inner critic that is really part of the prefrontal cortex, dials down. And I'm able to just think with openness and not judgment over like, is this good? Is this bad? Is this perfect? Is this going to work? Is it not? And you just put things out there. And that is another one of the attributes of like flow. It's just like you're just going with it. You're in the flow. You're in the flow. It's so good. So, how to chase flow? We are all built so different. And because the neurotransmitters are responding to your environment, your preferences, the things that are going on, you're going to have way different flow triggers than potentially the people that you work with, the people that you live with, or the people that you are around, because we're unique individuals. I'll talk a little bit about the types of flow that I really like to engage in and what kind of makes the hallmarks of flow as it comes into like personal alignment. I can't emphasize enough that if you're looking at the list of the different flow triggers and you're not seeing any of them, but you also have this like wonderful association with work that you're just like completely absorbed and focused, maybe try kind of like seeing how um, your own flow forms. When are you the most happy with your work? When are you feel like you're in like the most productive brain stage? Um, I thought I moved the shitty flow to another one. Let me talk about what a high flow business is. And these aren't necessarily like flow triggers, but I believe that these are conditions where flow can happen within a business, where people aren't stuck and restricted, where ideas can be bounced around. Number one is it's mission driven. There's something about like the alignment, and alignment from a mission is a very powerful one. So when everyone knows like why we're doing what we're doing, those can be a huge flow trigger for the business. Freedom. We need the freedom to say, this isn't working. I'm going to go this way. Or this isn't working. I have time to like absorb and adapt. The freedom to respond to your environment is part of the flow trigger, because if you felt constantly like you couldn't move or you couldn't operate in a certain way, you don't have enough freedom and mobility for flow to happen. Theory. There's also something about being focused and consistent that flow really likes. And as I said, ADHD girly here. My phone was like, um, it was bringing on the auto helper. I think I just need to like turn it off during this. All right. There's something about being focused and consistent, and I just got distracted, responding to my phone when I said this. But the focused and consistent, when you get like this cadence, it almost seems to like, if you can get focused and consistent in something that's really challenging, what happens is the cadence pulls you into like an unconscious part, and then you get to work on consciously the other parts. So a lot of this doing the Monday morning flow chasers is having so many parts be unconscious, because I've done them so many times, that I can really pull in and engage at different points of my development with this. So that's what I mean by a high flow business, focused and consistent, can really build the flow capacity. Adaptive. We are adapting so fast right now with AI, with all of the tariffs and economic triggers and uncertainty, but also like the good stuff, like the new tools that we have, the new all-star employee that just joined our team. Like these adaptations into our business really provide that flow, because we can be an additive system instead of like a closed system at this point. When we are adaptive, we aren't so controlling over the things that we have, because that we know that we can adjust and we can move. 5, clear goals and directions, kind of like 3, kind of like 1, but clear goals and directions, like going into certain spots. If you know, like, we're going to do this set, we are going to do this project, we are going to look on this, we're going to work on this problem, we are going to identify that. That's why when we go into meetings, when we really want to be on top of it, we'll list out like our goals and objectives of the meetings, and then we'll get into like the fun stuff. And then we'll of course do like the goals and the fun and the directions. I think that's a really important part. There has to be some sort of like central knowledge, mission driven, but there also needs to be like boots on the ground. I know what I'm doing, and I am certain that I have the ability to operate on that. And then we can grow our capacity. We can grow our capacity for adaptation by having systems that are adaptable, where they don't have one part that if it changes, everything is going to fall. We can grow our capacity by expanding the mission that we have to include more people. We can grow our capacity with our freedom to operate within a market. Actually, I just had this thought. Growing capacity, when you use freedom as like the trigger in a business, is absolutely phenomenal. I've met a few people that were working under certain professional services that had a lot of overview. Think therapist. I'm not saying this is what the person did, but think therapist. They had this adaption where they saw that the different therapy regulations was really prohibitive in getting to the solution that they wanted. So they opened up as a coach, removed everything from the credentials, like huge ego wipe to not be able to have your credentials on your professional website. But that's what this person did and has a wonderful, flourishing coaching business because they were able to see past the credentials, adapt, and then flow into those new space because it was all based around the mission. In order to get clients the results, she couldn't do that under the therapeutic licensing structure. She needed to do that under the coaching structure. Cool. I digress. But we crave this high flow career because it just feels so good. We've met people that are just stuck, and I feel for them because I've been stuck more than once in my life. And somebody who has this high flow career is the opposite of stuck. It's the creativity. It's the, I don't know what will happen, but I know I'm going to participate and I'm excited for it. And that is why I believe that we crave a high flow career. Now I'm going to talk about like creativity and adaptability. When we can adapt to things that are outside of our comfort zone, especially when we're met with community, with support, with guidance, we can really grow our capacity to step outside of our comfort zone. Last time I slightly stepped out of the comfort zone, my mother-in-law came and helped pick up my kid, and I got to, do all these wonderful things. So when we use our evidence that we can be creative, that we can do these things, and then lean on the structures, we can stay out of that dysregulation zone. Also, shout out to all the excellent mother-in-laws. I've got one. I'm so lucky. All right, steps to good flow. These are part of the individual flow triggers that are on a website that I cited on highlyanticipated.net/Mondays. Anywho, it all starts with self-regulation. If you want to grow your capacity for flow, start with self-regulation. And this can be on the project, and this could also be on a much greater level. People who participate in, physical exercise, yoga, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, those are incredibly buffering for your brain to be regulated when you get into intense situations. It's like that planned stress of exercise or combat, call it combat, but combat. It is preparing our brains to be like, I'm in a stressful situation that gets resolved. And then I feel healthier and I get that brain flow and the positive association. So self-regulation is one of the first most important steps to good flow. And it doesn't just happen right before you're going into like an all-nighter or something. Like good self-regulation happens every day. It's disguised as good self-care. It's the ability to take a deep breath, to relax, and to allow whatever is going to happen. Centering values and purpose. What this looks like for me is sometimes when I'm having a particularly challenging time focusing, I will cue into the due date. Like, when does this thing need to be done? Because that can sometimes be motivating. But I'll ask, like, what is the purpose of this whole thing and like why does it need to be done? And then I'll just think about it. And I get really emotional about like the things that you put energy in and care and attention, they grow in these dynamic ways. And when I put my purpose in something, I can see the evidence all around of what the effect of that is. And I think steps to good flow is kind of having that process at the beginning of like, why does this matter for me? And what is the purpose of this thing that I'm doing? You know, climbing the rock or, you know, doing the marathon or sitting down to a session. Like, why? What is the purpose of it? Because that comes into 3, which is like finding the alignment. And alignment is not necessarily purpose, it's like the you in all of this. So I might be wanting to do a project for a client, but when I am really finding alignment with something, I think I need this project to exist because and that creative spark comes out because it's an expression of confidence because it's this because it's that we can find alignment with the things that we're doing. It pulls us into flow. It's like we have more of our brain on alert because it's we've flagged it as important. So taking the step of really engaging, like regulating and then engaging in why you're doing this and defining a clear goal. I like to remove distractions, but I realize that having this on here, some people, when they flow, they like to have a lot of artifacts around them because their brains kind of like hop. So figure out like, are you a move all distractions kind of person when you're getting into certain types of flow, or do you need a lot of artifacts? And then stop when you need to. I have a a challenge that I'm working on, which is the stop when you need to. So I do set a lot of timers, and it's because in that flow state, time really does fade away. It's because the prefrontal cortex is diminished in capacity. But that's really like where a lot of the this takes 20 minutes, that takes 20 minutes, you know, thing comes from. In ADHD, the prefrontal cortex is already kind of it works fritzy. It can really go into overdrive and hyperprotection, and then it can also just like not know what time it is or what day it is or why you need to do something. Given the day. But stopping when you need to is so important because I believe that this builds trust in your body in order to drop into these flow states easier. You need to, when you get to a point of like bodily discomfort, like you're thirsty or you need to go to the bathroom, you need to stop. And the fear of stopping is I'm never going to get the juice back. It's going to take forever to get back in the flow. But what is worse is your body associating the flow state with fear. And I was starting to do that because I would come into these sessions and I wouldn't start a timer. Um, I would get really anxious when I had to like pack everything up in the last 5 minutes because somebody was pulling at me, or I had to like abruptly end a project that I was working on because I forgot a meeting was coming up until the Zoom, you know, somebody is in your Zoom room. That has happened to me too. Not proud of it. But stopping when you need to and building trust with yourself over time that you are a person who is going to stop flow when they need to. It helps you when you come back to a flow, drop in faster because your body recognizes it as a safe place. There is something with acceptance in all of this. Wherever there is a lot of judgments or shoulds, like it should look like this, or it really pulls people out of this flow state. And when a person can say that, like, whatever is going to happen, like, whoever I learn I am after I make this piece of art, I'm okay with. There's something about this radical acceptance that can increase your capacity for flow. To understand that whoever you are, your own slew of talents and experiences, the challenges, is worthy of full acceptance and support. And this expands capacity. So when we can be, like, out of our comfort zone and we can be supported, it really does stave off dysregulation. And I'm not making dysregulation the bad guy. It does end the fun though. It's going to be one of those railings that we're going to kind of smack against everyone every once in a while because we do really want to rise and increase the amount of challenges that we can take on and the possibilities that we can explore and entertain. I want to say thank you for watching this. This is one of my, I think, like 11th Flow Chasers Monday. I'll have to do the math later. I really appreciate you watching.